Hey there, everybody. My name is Joyce Amundi Wahiga. Welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce. This is the second hour of our show. Certainly hoping that you're well and enjoying our programming for you this morning. Remember, 111-444-111 is the SMS line. You can also reach me on social media at Switch TV KE on Instagram, at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. And you can follow me as well at Joyce Amundi on those platforms. In this second hour, I'll be bringing you, of course, our quote for the day. Later on, we'll be talking about new technology trends post-COVID-19. But before that, we want to touch on a self-improvement checklist. Now, before I introduce my guest for that, let's take a look at our quote for the day. This one is by Maya Angelou, and it says, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." I'll read that again. We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated. That there was said by Maya Angelou and is our quote for the day. Remember, you can comment on our Facebook page at Switch TV Kenya. And again, shout out to everybody that's engaging with us on that platform. Maybe let me just check out what are some of the latest comments I have there. Dorcas Warigia, asante sana, you're tuned in from Nakuru. I also have Pamela Jeptarus. Good morning to you too. Edith Koi as well. Thank you very much. Edith C. Chella as well, tuned in from Kericho. Joy Wanjiru says, good morning, watching from Nyeri. I just love this show. Truly speaking, I am learning a lot. I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you very much. And continue sending in your feedback as well to 111-444-111 this morning. All right, well, let me introduce my next guest. His name is Tony Wahome, and he's a millennial leadership coach and trainer. Welcome back to Full Circle with Joyce.
Thank you, Joyce. Tony Washira.
Tony Washira. I'm so sorry. But Tony Washira. I keep wanting to call you Wahome.
No problem.
But great to have you.
It's my father-in-law.
Is your father-in-law, yes. Great to have you back on the show. And I want us to then go through this self-improvement checklist. But maybe before we even do, it's important for us to even assess why we need to be, going through a self-improvement checklist. And I think part of it is, I think in our culture, especially as Africans, as Kenyans, we have this idea of kukaa ngumu. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what makes it tough for us. That's how we define being strong as individuals. Yeah. But that obviously has failed us, and we've seen that, with suicide rates. We've seen that with people struggling with depression and mental health issues and not feeling like they have an outlet or a place where they can, address some of the challenges and the fears that they're going through. So maybe let's begin there and just explain to us, what is self-improvement and why should everybody, regardless of your position or your stature, be paying attention to it?
Thank you very much, Joyce. Thank you for having me again.
You're welcome.
And I think that's a fantastic place to begin. Why self-improvement? What is this all about? I would like to begin by looking at technology, for instance. We have beautiful phones, we have nice cars, but every once in a while we get a better brand, we get an updated version of technology because there is something new that they want to patch up, because there's something that they want to improve, because they've been listening to feedback, and because times are changing. The very same way, our human body is like a machine. It requires a certain level of tender love and care for it to function well. And there's also this thing with issues of life. Currently, we are going through a season that is unprecedented in anybody's lifetime, I believe, where we are going through a global issue that has affected everybody almost in the same way. And these are issues that keep coming into life that we were not prepared for. We talk about a VUCA world where there's volatility, there's uncertainty, there's complexity and ambiguity. So the world it keeps changing. We are facing new challenges, and self-improvement, self-development is a part of that. How we are going to cope with the issues of the world is by improving, is by learning new skills. Allow me to use, I love quotes. There's a guy called Leon Megginson. This quote has been attributed to Charles Darwin, but wrongly. He said that it is not the strongest of the species that survive. It is those that are ready to adapt. And then one of my favorite quotes by a gentleman called Alvin Toffler, he said, it is the illiterate, he said this in 1970, that the illiterate of the 20th century are not those who will not know how to read and write. It's those who will learn, unlearn, and relearn. So it's a process of continuous development, continuous improvement that will help us to cope with emerging challenges.
All right. All right. So as you've mentioned, then self-improvement is something all of us should be paying attention to. And there are different facets of it, different approaches, but also different areas in which one should really be focusing on. So maybe we can begin going through all of them, or as many as we can, because there's so many. Let's begin with something like gratitude. To me, this is one of the most important practices one could have and should learn to master. Talk to us about that. Gratitude and contentment.
Wow. In this season, I have had to speak about that a bit, and I even have a little thingy that we do in my house often. It's called Rose, Thorn, Bud. The two roses are two things that you are grateful for. The thorn is something that is bugging you completely, and the bud is something that you're looking forward to.
Okay.
So, I mean, waking up is an opportunity. Rising up, having life for me is an opportunity. I believe that if we look hard enough, there's so many things to thank God about. There's so many things to be grateful for. The gift of life means that you have a chance. Life is a chance. Something could change if you're willing to work, if you're willing to collaborate, if you're willing to reach out, as opposed to looking the other way or at the negatives. The negatives are always glaring at us. When we are training, we hold out a piece of paper and we put a little dot on it and we ask somebody, what do you see? Everybody sees the dot. Everybody misses the rest of the paper that is white. So something that is amiss, something that is off is so easy to notice. But if we look hard enough, there are many, many reasons that we can find to be grateful for. And when we are grateful for things as little as breath of life, as little as health, so many people have lost jobs, so many people have lost livelihoods, so many people have had to take care of their family members. And if you're not careful, you can be sucked into a web of ingratitude and complaining. And that has an effect on your body. So I would advise that we look for little things to be grateful for. They may look little, but the song that says count your blessings and name them one by one, when you do that, we did that with my wife another time, and we were shocked at the many things that we had missed. Because we don't count those things. We are always counting the bad things. So it could be a good thing to journal and keep a record of the good things as opposed to keeping a record of the wrongs. And you'll find that there's quite a bit to be thankful for. Yes.
And also just because sometimes one bad problem, I don't know why, but it just magnifies itself. It's probably not even that big of a deal when you compare with all the other blessings that you have. But there's a way that a problem can become so magnified, or we give it too much attention and we magnify it far beyond what it actually is, that it overshadows everything else. And that is really a recipe for a very unhappy and unproductive life. So it's a constant decision to keep choosing joy and to keep focusing on the good.
Yeah. Let me add something to that. I took a course sometime this year, and the coach who was coaching us was telling us that you need to have a long list of things that should upset you. Sorry, I said it wrongly. That you need the criteria for you to have a bad day should be, it should tick like 100 boxes. So that if all of them are ticked, now I am upset. And the criteria for you to be happy should be a few ticks, like I woke up today. I saw my family. I saw my pet. Those three things, or one of those things, is enough to give you a good day.
All right.
Yes.
Great. Well, I want us to take a break at this point, and when we come back, I want us to look at some other things that you should possibly include into your checklist, including this idea of mindfulness. I think we've been hearing a lot of buzz around that word over the last few years now. But even where does the word assertiveness and sort of the characteristic of being a little more firm and assertive actually come into play in this life? Okay. 111 444 111 is the SMS line. Send in your feedback and your comments, and we'll be back after this. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm here with Tony Wachira, and we're going through a self-care checklist. And we've already discussed the first one, which I think everybody should have, which is gratitude and just being grateful and content with life and choosing joy, like I like to say every single day. But I want us now to talk about mindfulness. This is a word that we've sort of been seeing kind of rotate in the personal development, self-care scene for a little bit now, and there's been a lot of buzz about it, books, articles, name it. Explain what mindfulness is and how we can then incorporate it into self-care.
Okay, thanks again, Joyce. Mindfulness, like you put it, is a buzzword right now, and my definition for mindfulness would be being present, being in the moment, understanding yourself, being very self-aware, and beginning from a point of knowing how exactly you feel, and then responding to things from a point of knowledge. And just to go a little wider, meditation is a part of mindfulness. And by meditation here, I mean just taking a moment, shutting things out to understand, where am I? What am I feeling right now? Identifying the feelings. Sometimes when you ask people how they feel, they don't know how they feel. Some of us cannot be able to differentiate between being angry and being sad. You need to be able to identify your feelings, and then you come from a point of knowing how you feel, so that you can address what you're going through.
Okay.
Only when you identify something, and in this case a problem, a feeling, an emotion, only when you identify it, you name it, identify it, isolate it, can you deal with it? Because if you don't know what you're fighting, you might fight anyone, you might fight anything. So you begin from a point of soul searching, introspecting, meditating, and then what comes out of that is now something that you can be able to deal with.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. So being present in the situation, and sometimes that also means confronting the reality of what it is, and allowing yourself, I guess, to grieve something if you have to find joy with something if you have to. But I think many of us obviously don't want to experience certain emotions, especially the ones that are sad. But from what I'm understanding, you say mindfulness, you have to take it as the whole package.
Yes.
You can't be selective about what you're going to be mindful about.
Yes.
Okay.
Once you identify it, I like what you're saying. Don't fake it. Don't lie to yourself. Don't try to be. So because there will be a spectrum of what I want to be versus what I am. So try not to pretend that you are this. Try not to avoid certain emotions. We are all human beings. We face sadness, we face grief, we face joy. All those are emotions that we all go through.
Yeah.
So if we are grieving, we identify, I am grieving. So after you identify that there's a reason to grieve, go through the process. Only when you identify it are you going to go through it successfully, because we should grieve. But we cannot grieve forever. There's a period at which we are able to now deal with it and sort of have a semblance of normalcy in life.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I want us to talk about assertiveness. Is sort of unlikely to see that in a checklist as far as self-care, because obviously we always tend to look down on people being too assertive. So for it to be on a checklist kind of feels like it's a
bit off.
It's off. Explain what you mean by assertiveness.
Fantastic. Being assertive, one of the best ways for me to define assertive is I observe moms and their babies. So baby wants to misbehave. Mommy does not need to yell. Mommy just needs to say no in a very nice way. It's non-threatening. It's just it's authority by influence. So they just say no. So assertiveness is just being able to state your case, state your wants without necessarily being overly aggressive, without necessarily hurting the feelings of other people.
Yeah.
Because a no is a no, a yes is a yes, a request is a request.
Yeah.
Everything stands on its own merit.
Okay.
But the converse of assertiveness is now being a doormat, where every request that I make, you say yes, you're a yes person, which means that you end up taking on too much and you are overwhelmed and you are stressed and you're anxious, and especially at a time like this.
Okay.
It's a period where we need to stop. There's a lot going on. So if you're taking more on an already stressed person, you're already stressed and you're taking much more than you can handle, you will not be productive, you'll be worse off. So assertive is being able to say no when you need to and yes when you need to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Maybe we can jump on to another one now, which is about overcoming fear. And this is a big one for me. One of my sort of hashtags or goals throughout the year has been faith over fear. And maybe you can just talk about what that means as far as self-care is concerned from your perspective, just because clearly that holds so many of us back from actually achieving our potential.
All right. That is another good one. I remember when I was younger listening to, I don't know who that was, one of these preachers, and he said that fear is false evidence. He acronymed it.
Yes.
False evidence
Appearing real.
appearing real. So a lot of times what we fear is, there's nothing really to fear.
Yeah.
But going back to being mindful, it's okay to confront a fear and say, I am afraid of this. So you put it there, and then so that you're not pretending that you are not afraid. And only then are you going to be able to deal with it. And I have been seeing a lot of writing, people saying that you just need to take the first step to do something. There are many reasons to be afraid right now. Jobs, the economy, everything is frail. So we have a lot of things to fear. On the converse, we have a lot of things to be grateful for, like we said. And also another thing that I recommend is collaboration. Who can I work with? What can I do different so that I can overcome this? If it's too much for me, who has done this before? Who's gone through this? Has it been done before? Yes. Who did it? Another human being? Yes. How did they do it? Most of the times, nobody does it alone. So it is always good to find company that is able to help you overcome these fears.
Right.
But I like your acronym, faith over fear, because even the preachers who used to tell us about false evidence appearing real, used to tell us that we need to fight fear with faith.
Yeah.
That it can be done.
Yeah.
And that with God, all things are possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other one that hopefully a lot of people have been spending time focusing on in this season, of course, with COVID and all that has been learning new skills. And maybe just even picking up a book and reading it. And so maybe we can talk about how personal development and really just kind of taking the initiative to learn and to study and to grow can really influence one for the better. And hopefully you've been prepared, because, we're trusting God that COVID will be, a thing of the past soon. But hopefully you've also been spending that time kind of preparing yourself for the future that you envision.
Yeah. I like that very much. I'm in that space. I'm a coach and a trainer. And this year in particular, I have used this time to develop myself. I've gotten 4 coaching certifications along the year, and numerous training certificates. And even now, right now I'm learning things formally, and I have some free courses and I have some paid courses that I'm doing right now. Yeah. What I feel that we should do to develop ourselves, and I love the way we began with learning and relearning, and not the strongest of the species that will survive, but the ones that are going to adapt. Learning for me is growth. Growth, you can call growth adaptation, you can call it evolution, call it what you will. Our industries are changing. My advice to people out there is this: what in your industry is changing? And what trends are shaping the world that will affect your industry? We have a world of information on the internet. We have authorities like the Harvard Business Review. We have authorities like World Economic Forum, where you can study and see the trends that are shaping the world right now that can affect your industry.
Right.
We have machine learning. We have artificial intelligence. You have got to keep in step with what is happening, so that you will be relevant in your own industry.
Yeah.
And as well, there's the interdisciplinary of industries. There's a lot of interconnectivity. Industries are connecting. So because of that, what in your industry is going to connect? What is it going to connect with? What are the outcomes? how can you be creative? How can you think out of the box to fight, say, the jobs that are being taken by machines? Because sometimes we are afraid that machines are taking our jobs, but at the same time, other jobs are being created that we don't know about. So what kind of jobs do you think will come? What kind of skills will be relevant even when machines come? So it's a time to be reading books. It's a time to be watching videos. It's a time to be researching to find out what is relevant in your industry and what is projected to continue being relevant.
Yeah, and that's, so I can't emphasize that enough. It's super important. Also, when you consider how, if you cannot make, investments, financial investments in things, you can absolutely be investing in your mind. And it's such a simple way to do it. And you just kind of consider, what do you spend time on? Maybe you don't have a job right now. Hopefully you're not just, spending your time on social media. Use part of that time, carve it out to actually grow yourself as well and invest in your mind. That's one of those investments that I think you can never go wrong with. I don't think you'll ever read a book and be like, oh, man, I think I've wasted some time. Like, I feel like there's always something that you can learn.
I agree.
Yeah, and the idea that learning never stops, to always be hungry, to always be a student of this life is, I think, a winning characteristic.
Yeah. You reminded me something else. I think at the same time, learning, there's I read somebody who wrote an article of, the way we write a to-do list. You should actually have a not to-do list.
Okay.
So, because that's a way of learning, because some of the things that are in your to-do list or the things that you do unconsciously, you talked about too much time on social media, too much time on TV, especially during this period, they are wasting your time. They are stealing from you. So it's an appropriate time to also create a not to-do list so that it helps you be more productive, it helps you be more intentional, it helps you be more you're learning all the time as opposed to wasting your time.
Right.
Granted, there's time to rest.
Absolutely.
But we cannot spend too much time doing things that are not helping us grow. Yep.
Wow. As we get ready to bring this to a close in a few minutes here, let's also talk about organization and how that actually plays into self-care. What does that have to do with anything?
Okay. If my wife is watching this, she must be laughing at me because she's the one who organizes me. People like me call me sanguine. There are different personalities out there, and it's actually a good thing to understand yourself. I think it's part of mindfulness, because what it doesn't give you labels like most people are afraid. It helps you know your predominant behavior and its inherent strengths and areas of development. So for me, I think that organization is so important because it helps you do things in a systematic way. I've learned lately that you should have a system, you should have a structure. And people like me who don't like structure need to learn that structure is okay. And if you need help, you ask for it to create those structures, because without a plan, when you don't plan, there's an adage that says that failing to plan is planning to fail. So, and planning is all about structure. Structure is about organizing. Organize yourself, organize your day. And the thing we had said about a not to-do list is a part of that. There's a not to-do list and there's a to-do list.
Right.
Because without organization, you will do anything, but with organization, you will do the important things that you had planned to do.
Right.
Yes.
And that's helpful as far as making sure you don't get overwhelmed.
That too,
especially for people like me who pay almost too much attention to detail. It can be very overwhelming if now you're trying to be everything to everyone and to do everything for everyone, or even just for yourself. So to move from being a busybody to just being really productive and, I guess, very clear as far as what you need to accomplish. What they call, I guess, not working hard, but working smart.
Fantastic. And also giving yourself a pat in the back when you have, I achieved everything.
Sure.
The last week somebody wrote, a friend of mine on LinkedIn wrote, she said, have a slice of cake and appreciate yourself when you achieve. It could be achieving your goals for that day. We don't do that enough. Yes, and I think we should.
So as we wrap up then, for one who's been listening to us in this conversation and maybe they're actually saying, wow, I've never actually done an exercise like this one and perhaps I need to, what would you encourage them as far as the how they can go about actually creating this checklist? You know, how long should it be? Are we trying to focus on 7 things? Here we are talking about organization. Are we trying to talk about 7, 10 things to you know, focus self-care on? Would you recommend it just be 3? Do you start with just 1? How long should you be practicing this for? What would be your guidance?
Wow, that's a tricky one. That's a tricky one. I'll go with this. I'll say, look at your day. Look at the things that you struggle with. At the very least, you need to try and have a balance in your career, with your self-care, and with your relationships. Because I think one of the things that we have learned during this COVID season is the importance of family. Because right now, if you're a married person, your wife is your colleague. You work in the same office. Also, in addition to that, you're now a teacher or a core teacher or core facility. You're taking care of your child's schooling issues, and you've been doing this for a bit. And those things are likely to bring a bit of strife. And of course, being together for so long, you rub each other the wrong way. There's likely to be a little more conflict than there was before.
Sure.
So it has brought a lot of things into perspective. So in terms of bringing us a checklist, I would say that you need to have the most important things up front. Family is very important.
Prioritize.
If you're a parent, you'll be a parent all your life. If you're married, you'll be married. Ideally, we should be married until death do us part.
Right.
So those are things that are going to affect the other things. Because at the end of the workday, if COVID opens, you're going to go and come back to the same home. So in terms of that checklist, it should take care of these relationships.
All right.
And then it should take care of the secondary relationships that come out of that. And of course, taking care of yourself. You need some me time, you need some you time, so that you recharge your batteries, so that you're good to go, so that you are efficient.
Great.
So that's where I would say they should build it from there.
Okay.
And they can borrow from the tips that we gave them from there.
Sure.
And they can make it as big as they want, but not too big to avoid overwhelm.
Not too big that it's overwhelming.
Yes.
Tony, thank you for coming on to the show once again. And for those who want to get in touch with you, how can they find you?
I am most active on LinkedIn. I am Anthony P.W. Wachira. I'm a consultant and coach. I work with a company called JPent, but the easiest way to find me is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you again for your time. We do appreciate you. And with that said, guys, we're going to take a break now as we get ready for our final segment of the day. Still coming up next, we want to turn and shift our focus just a little bit towards technology and specifically discuss new technology trends post-COVID-19. 111 444 111 is the SMS line, and I'll be back after this.